your test tube on?
Yep. You can play the game and you can act out the part, though you know it wasn't written for you. Tell me, how can you stand there with your broken heart, ashamed of playing the fool? One thing can lead to another. It doesn't take any sacrifice. Oh, father and mother, sister and brother, it feels nice, don't think twice. Oh, shower the people with love, it's love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you know it will. Shower the people with love is love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you know it will. You can run, but you cannot hide. This is widely known. And plan to do with your foolish pride. When you're all by yourself, you're alone. Tell somebody the way that you feel. You can feel it beginning to ease. I think it's true that they say about always getting the grease. Oh, shower the people with love is love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you know it will. What I'd like to do to you, oh, shower the people with love is love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you know it will. Shower the people with love is love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you know it will. Shower the people with love is love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you only to survive. When we're hungry, love will keep us alive. Don't you worry, sometimes you got to let it ride. The world is changing right before your eyes. Now I found you, there's no more emptiness inside. When we're hungry, love will keep us alive. I would die for you, climb the highest mountain. Baby, there's nothing I wouldn't do. I was standing all alone against the world outside. You were searching for a place to hide, lost and lonely. Now you've given me the will to survive. When you're hungry, love will keep us alive. I would die for you, climb the highest mountain. Baby, there's nothing I wouldn't do. I was standing all alone against the world outside. For a place to hide, lost and lonely. Now you're giving me the will to survive. When you're hungry, love will keep us alive. Thank you.
Technical difficulties, just handling the mic. Good morning. Welcome to Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northern Nevada. I am the Bob Alto, worship associate. I go by the pronouns he, him, his, and I've been an active member for 10 years in this fellowship, and I'm grateful for the loving community that it is. I love to travel. I've been in over 30 countries and all of the continents. And my favorite trip, if people ask, what's your favorite place you've been? It's Antarctica. And there's just something beautiful, inherently beautiful. We are meeting on the lands of the Paiute, Shoshone, and Washoe tribes, and we are mindful of the profound debt to our indigenous brothers and sisters. So reflect on that just a bit, if you could. The Dalai Lama has said, when we feel love and kindness toward others, it only makes others feel loved and cared for, but it helps us also to develop inner happiness and peace. And I hope that's what you find here, inner happiness and peace. We have a special service today because we have Lois and David Bianchi as they celebrate their 60th wedding anniversary. And 57 years at UUFNN. Woo! I was contemplating the whole idea of love and marriage, and the song came to me, love and marriage, go together like a horse and carriage. And then I thought about, what if the horse leaves the carriage? What happens if you get stuck in the mud? But then, of course, when the carriage and the horse are in alignment, and it's a beautiful spring day, and you're riding in the carriage, and the horse is just galloping along the way. A beautiful spring day, much like today. I don't want you to forget what we did last week, but I found this in my little packet of things, and we were supposed to write what we're struggling with and what I hope for in that struggle. And may I just share, because it's significant for many of us, indeed maybe all of us. In my life right now, I'm struggling with pain and loss of mobility. I can speak a little bit to that. This is from an unknown source, by the way. In that struggle, one thing I hope for is decrease in pain and more acceptance of it. So we're kind of here to help each other and recognize some of those things. Some of us are now with canes and going a little bit slower. Being present today, may you find inspiration, sanctuary, and healing, love and support for yourself, and service to others. Whether you're a seeker, a wanderer, a giver, a discoverer, you are welcome here. Now, those of you in Zoom, wherever you are, will remain muted during the service, but you can put your comments in the chat box, and you can stay afterwards for coffee time, conversations. No matter where you are, whether you're here or there in wonderful outer space, sit back and enjoy. We come here to voice our truths and to help support one another in this lovely community. Now's the time to greet each other, and we'll do this. We'll do this by the sounding bell, and when I ring it one more time, that means please sit down, all right? Now you can hug, you can wave, you can do anything is appropriate. Hi. Oh my gosh, that's mine.
Is that yours?
That's mine. Okay.
Okay, so on that one song in the middle,
Yeah.
we're going to steal that. Well, when you're done with it, you can just put it right up front, because Lois and I are going to be there with both of those. Oh no, we have those over there.
Those over there.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Please,
thought
don't
you-
confuse me
I thought you
anymore.
stole one.
No. Okay.
Good. Welcome.
Thank you. He's doing announcements.
Then I'll have an announcement for him.
Okay.
Here in this place of peace, may we find hope. Here in this place of connection, may we find life-giving community. Here in this place of rest, let the unrest of our hearts turn us towards justice. Here in this space made sacred by memories of connection, let us each feel ourselves part of the new that grows from the old into the spiraling unity of years.
Now it's time for our chalice lighting, and I will say the words as I light the chalice. Maybe after I light the chalice. We meet as members of a spiritual community. We covenant to engage each other with kindness and courage and love. We light this chalice as a symbol of our community, our covenant, and our faith. Now I'm going to be chorister. What? Oh, Mike. Oh. Okay. I'm getting all kinds of hand signals, but I'm going to follow my intuition. Okay? And what I'm going to say is, this is a new experience for me in front of you. So I'm going to lead the music, or try. If we get off key, roll with it. Roll with it. Okay? Woo! Would you please stand if you are able? Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Rejoice and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Woo!
Bob, we might make you a permanent song leader. It's just, this is good. This is a time in our service where we share some of our joys and concerns, and I ran across a reading by Martha Kirby Koppel. As we enter this shared sacred time, let us renew both our commitment and our covenant. There are those among us who have endured a loss in the past week. May their hope be uplifted again in the community of faith. May they find renewed strength. There are those among us who have wrestled with questions that seem to have no answers this past week. May they find sanctuary in this community of faith. There are those among us who have cherished an unexpected joy in the past week. May their gladness be celebrated. As we commit to continue our free and responsible search for truth, may we covenant to honor the many paths that have led us to this community. And so as we take a few moments of silence to think about our own joys and concerns, let's also raise up Chris and Eileen Picar's. Eileen's brother unexpectedly passed away yesterday, so Chris, let's pass that on to Eileen. We also have some joys this week. There's a couple of birthdays that have come up this, and another one here. Let me see if it's a joy or a concern. Looks like a joy to me. Carol and Bob, where are they? They're in the back. So Carol and Bob Lewis celebrated their wedding anniversary this week also, and I understand it's 55 years. And we have a couple of birthdays. One right up front, though. First, there's...
Well, the Ma's, though. The Ma's are also celebrating their anniversary, too.
Which one is that?
24?
24.
24, good.
And then right up front here's a birthday today. Today, is that right? And Kevin, we won't ask you how old you are. It's all right. Really old. Jenny Kersey, is that your birthday today too? All right. And on Zoom, I think, is she on Zoom today? Janine Franklin Clark. It's her birthday today as well. And then there's another one coming up this week, I think. Is that Nathan? All right. Well, let's just take a few moments now in this silent time to think about our own joys and concern for others. Thank you, Mary Lee. You know, Mary Lee, we've known you a long time. You've been here. We don't often enough thank you and your beautiful piano playing. Let's give her. Although I tried to take the music stand earlier and was told that, no, that needs to be there because she doesn't want to be on television. So thank you all. And I think we have a few words from the president of our board, Jackie Riley.
Good morning, everyone, here and on Zoom. And I'm going to add two joys. Our daughter Amanda turned 32 on April 1st. And then Kevin and I celebrated our 47th anniversary on the 2nd, which, whew. How did I get so old? Wow. Okay, I am the president of the board, and there are several other board members here, and I'm hoping there's one on Zoom, but I don't know that. Actually, before I do the announcement, if anybody didn't, those of you that didn't get to the forum today, check it out on YouTube. Excellent. Sean Griffin spoke. It was very, very good. Well worth the hour or so to watch. Hope you'll do that. So, many of you have been asking about Reverend Shelley's sudden departure in March. I want to reassure you all and waylay people's anxiety. I want to give you a bit of information about that. And we'll hold a Q&A after service in Star King if you want to join us. And I've got a handout that I'll give out there. Our contract with Reverend Shelley had a stipulation that either leadership or Reverend Shelley could choose not to renew the contract for a second year. It's a common thing in interim ministry contracts. We worked with the UUA staff for 4 months to reconcile our differences. In February, Reverend Shelley and the trustees agreed unanimously that Reverend Shelley was not a good fit for our congregation. The job of the trustees is to care for the congregation as a whole. I believe we're doing that. Please understand that we did not make this decision lightly, nor without hours and hours of consideration, thought, discussion, and working with each other, UUA staff, and clergy, which, thank you, Reverend Karen, she referred me to someone who was quite helpful. Per Reverend Shelley's contract, she is paid until the end of her 1-year interim ministry here at UUFNN. That is the best decision for her and for UUFNN going forward, and it's in her contract that we have with her. Hiring a minister at the end of Reverend Shelley's contract, August 15th, will depend on the results of our stewardship pledge drive. Last notice I got, we're about 100,000 short of reaching our goal of 365,000. If we don't get much, much closer to that goal, we will not have funds to hire a minister. We continue to work with the leadership and staff to have the best, healthiest, and most beloved congregation in Northern Nevada, as we all work to fulfill our mission of growing in love, faith, justice, and joy.
Now we're going to switch gears a little bit and go back to the love and marriage portion of our service. I'm going to read a poem by Khalil Gibran, and if you know his work, he wrote The Prophet, and has many philosophical and beautiful poetic ways about talking about our lives. This one is entitled On Marriage. Then Al-Mitra spoke again and said, "And what of marriage, Master?" And he answered, saying, "You were born together, and together you shall be forevermore. You shall be together when the white wings of death scatter your days. Aye, you shall be together even in the silent memory of God. But let there be spaces in your togetherness, and let the winds of the heavens dance between you. Love one another, but make not a bond of love. Let it rather be a moving sea between the shores of your souls. Fill each other's cup, but drink not from one cup. Give one another of your bread, but eat not from the same loaf. Sing and dance together and be joyous, but let each one of you be alone. Even as the strings of a lute are alone, though they quiver with the same music. Give your hearts, but not to each other's keeping, for only the hand of life can contain your hearts. And stand together, yet not too near together, for the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow. Now we shall sing. If you'd like to stand, please stand. It is our life, we sing our thanks and praise, for our life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. Serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks, for all that is our life. For all that is our life, for saving things and law, for all I men yearn, for fever hours have passed, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, our thanks and pray, for all life is a gift we are called to use to build the common good. In our holy days.
Am I on? Yes, okay.
So last weekend, Easter time, my sister flew in from Bountiful, Utah, and then Lois and my sister and I drove to Grants Pass, Oregon, to see my brother. And we're all in our 80s now, so it's good to get together once in a while and reminisce. We spent all weekend telling stories and reminiscing. And so I thought today we would just, Lois and I are going to just talk to each other here and reminisce, because it's kind of fun to do that, isn't it? So we'll talk about our 60 years of marriage and the fellowship that we joined soon afterwards. So she and I are going to talk. You guys can just listen in if you like. So Lois, do you remember how we met at the University of Nevada? You know, I was dating your roommate at the time, but you and I became really good friends, and then you dated one of my roommates, and then I dated another one of your roommates. So we just like to say we just ran out of roommates.
But the truth was that I decided not to date any of those guys again. But you tricked me into going with you to the Winter Carnival in February.
Yeah. And so you started hanging out with me a little bit more, and we actually went on some real dates. But unbeknownst to you, I was falling madly in love. And by April, so February to April, I asked you to, I just decided I wanted to ask you to marry me. And I recall getting down on my knee and proposing. And you know in the movies how they show when somebody proposes, the other person goes, yes, and they leap on them. So what happened here?
Well, you caught me by complete surprise and off guard, and I wasn't sure I wanted to commit at this time. So I said, I'll take this ring, but we're going to have to wait at least a year before we decide to get married.
She was always the practical one. Well, you know, one of the things we started doing, though, during that year, we started going to the First Methodist Church downtown Reno every Sunday. We decided that's where we should get married.
And what happened after the wedding was very interesting. We never went back to that church. We never discussed why, and it just never came up.
Yeah, and then 3 years later, I read an interview in Life magazine with the president of the Unitarian Universalist Association about the merger of those two religions, Unitarian and Universalist. So I read it twice, and it really intrigued me, and so I had Lois read it, and then we thought, I wonder if there's a UU church in Reno.
And sure enough, we looked up the phone number, and it was the number of Jim and Betty Holtz's home. They said, come to the YW on Valley Road. Well, this was also when Jenny Kersey and her husband Bob discovered the fellowship. And of course, today we already said, happy birthday, Jenny.
Well, what we found there were some of our university professors and a few others. And they would just listen to a speaker and then have a talk back. So, Kevin, it's kind of like our forum that we have today.
It was an intellectual, enriching time, along with understanding the ethical values that were being espoused. There was no creed or dogma to make us feel guilty for questioning how we felt about things like Christianity or the Bible.
Yeah, it was a free feeling, wasn't it? We loved it. But the military took us away from Reno for 2 years. While stationed at Fort Lee, now known as Fort Gregg Adams, we started attending the UU church in Richmond, Virginia. We thought, wow, a real church with a building and a minister. Maybe we could have something like that in Reno someday.
It was also there that we met a woman who told us that her nephew lived in Reno, and his name was Bill Isaiah. We said, well, we may have heard of his name, but we didn't know him. While in law school, the next year, Bill attended the same church in Richmond.
Well, you know, I had an opportunity while in the military to put my UU values to work. I was serving in Korea, and I was overseeing all the income generating activities from the troops at various bases. And one day I got a call from the civilian clerk at the craft store. He told me there was a rule that there would be no refunds or returns. The general's son had purchased an item there and wanted to return it, was told he couldn't. And that really made the general angry. I asked the clerk to read the regulation to me, which he did, and I told him he's doing the right thing and just follow the rules. Well, within a few minutes of that happening, I got an angry phone call from my boss, a colonel, who chewed me out and told me to give that kid the refund. Well, I asked him if that was a direct order, and he said, absolutely. I said, okay, sir, but I just have one question for you. He said, what's that? I said, would you have done the same for a private?
I don't think he was very happy. When we returned from the military, we had started our family, and the fellowship was still meeting at the YWCA. But we soon moved to the Center for Religion and Life, which was across from the UNR campus. It was a nice space for the adults, not so much for young ones. We met in the coffee shop downstairs. And I was teaching RE, and by then we had 3 children. Often, our 3 children would be the only ones in class. But I found it was a great time to talk about UU principles, while I may not have done that at home. It was at the center that Joyce Fisher and Sandy Young came to our fellowship and introduced music to us. Before then, we didn't think we could sing.
Yeah, I think we were always looking ahead at the words to see if we agreed with them. So, you know, the next several years were busy times for both our growing family and the fellowship, which was also growing. And it was the 70s or 80s and 80s, and the fellowship had to move a couple of times before settling here on this lot. If you can believe it, it was barren. There were no trees, no shrubs. And just look around at the grounds today. Who would have believed it?
While we were still at the center, the Senior Center Club house off Silverado Boulevard in 1984, we celebrated our 20th anniversary by renewing our vows. We were both turning 40, and that year, so we realized that we had been married half of our lives. Beth Isaiah was our minister for marriage, and at the time, and performed the ceremony. It was also at this space when we realized there was no space for the children. So I, on occasion, would pitch a tent outside the building on Sunday.
Well, you and I were also busy in the community. I was on the founding board helping bring public television to the area. I also had the opportunity to help start what was called the Boys Club. One of my goals was to make it a Boys and Girls Club, and that actually happened while I was still on the board. Once again, our UU values kicked in when in the 80s there was a movement, some of you may recall, to include women in different organizations. And I belonged to several of those. One was called the JCs, Rotary International, and even Toastmasters, which had been exclusively male. And then I also served on the board of the Conference of Christians and Jews, which was a great organization. I enjoyed it. But at one point I attempted to include protecting the gay population in town, and I was voted down by the board. It was also about this time I decided to run for the state senate against a pretty powerful incumbent, my one and only political aspiration. But I enjoyed the interaction with the community, and I was heavily supported by educators and women's organizations.
And speaking of the Conference of Christian and Jews, they started a camp called Camp Anytown, which dealt with all types of prejudices. I was a counselor and a chaperone, and did that for 2 years, encouraging my own teenagers to join me. A young man came from the East as part of the staff, and his name is Terry DeBarger. You may know him. I also remember dedicating our small building, now known as either the RE building or the administrative building, while I was president. We had a small ceremony where we nailed an evergreen tree onto the roof to signify safety and good luck for our future. Many of us helped remodel that house to become our first permanent home. It was at this time that our youngsters planted a small Christmas tree. See if you can find that tree out there now. It is one of the tallest trees on our campus.
Well, you know, I love the story how we ended up with that small building. All we had here, as I said earlier, was an empty lot, nothing on it. So the board authorized member Elmer Rusko to spend up to $1,000 to buy a house that was being condemned so they could finish the north-south freeway. But he was outbid by $100. So the next day, the woman who bought it called back and said, you know, she bought it for her son, but it turned out the son didn't really want it. So she said, I'll sell it to you guys for $1,000. So that's how we ended up with that building back there. Of course, it cost quite a bit more to move it and remodel it.
Sometimes the people we have met through this fellowship have had a major impact on our lives. When I decided to return to the workforce, I went to the library to gather information about creating a resume. When I ran into a longtime member, Shirley Altick, who asked, what are you doing? When I explained, she said, I want you to go right up to Hug High right now and sign on for the new educational program called English as a Second Language. That started my long-time career as both an ESL teacher and a coordinator for the school district in that program.
Remember our temporary move to Swope Middle School? We kind of outgrew our little building. We were there for 2 years while this sanctuary is being built, and we met in the school cafeteria. It kind of smelled like sour milk. And we had to haul stuff in and out every Sunday. And I remember Gaia Brown and Lloyd Rogers joined at that time. I'm just surprised they stayed.
Me too. Over the years, we have served on just about every committee, but one that stands out in my mind is the Caring Committee, where we really do care for and look out for one another. Dave and I continue to do this, provide rides and support.
Oh, another happy memory. Remember our 60th birthday party?
Yeah.
We were the first ones to hold a party in this new sanctuary. It was a huge, huge success, and hopefully there weren't too many wine stains on the new cement floor.
I love that people call us the Justice Church. I think it is an appropriate moniker. Some of my favorite memories were of IHN, the Interfaith Hospitality Network. And I know this is Pam Gormley's favorite outreach program. This is where many other churches and our fellowship housed individuals, couples, and people with children who were temporarily unhoused. We fed them, had them sleep overnight, and sometimes gave them an ear to listen to their stories.
Yeah, unfortunately that program went away, but we also provided sanctuary here in our building to undocumented folks and had them sleep and stay here while we tried to assist them in that awful bureaucracy known as ICE, the immigration system. You know, so many of our members, they continue to assist with refugees, with climate concerns, racism, and so much more. And many of us, every 2 years when the legislature's in session, go down and actually meet with our legislators.
We've had so many memorable, ministers, both interim and full-time. There was Reverend Catherine Lineage, who still acts as our community minister. And we loved Reverend Sam Wright and his wife Donna, who was only here for a year, but made a big impact. Reverend Greg Stewart and his husband Stillman and their large brood of adopted sons. Reverend Neil Anderson, who came right out of the internship and led us for several years, followed by our beloved Reverend Karen Foster and her wife Sue.
Yeah, and through it all, through the ups and downs, we've never lost our love and affection for this fellowship and all it stands for. The Unitarian Universalist Association and Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northern Nevada Covenants, they support our philosophies and help guide us in our daily lives. You know, a few years ago, we took a 4-month road trip and we visited several UU churches throughout the country and discovered our fellowship's actually in great shape.
Yeah. We raised 3 children in this fellowship, and now all of them, along with their children, our 4 grandsons, have great ethical values. What more can we ask for?
So when we came back from that church in Virginia with big dreams about what our fellowship could become, and, well, look at us now. You know, we do have a few struggles, but we are really a strong, vibrant, caring community. We can overcome any temporary phase we're going through.
You know, didn't you title this service, What's Love Got to Do with It? What was that about?
Well, I was in a worship associate meeting and they said, "What's the title of your talk?" And it just popped into my head. And then afterwards, you know, I realized I probably said that because I really enjoy the music by Tina Turner. I never really thought about the words, though, so I looked it up. Here's some of the words. What's love got to do with it? What's love but a second-hand emotion? Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? Wow, I thought that's really cynical. Then I realized she probably had good reason to be cynical at the time. She'd just come out of an abusive relationship, and you know, we've known people, including some in this fellowship, who have faced similar situations.
Yes, that's true. You and I have been fortunate to be surrounded by loving people and a loving support system for our teenagers. I loved it when they participated in Our Whole Lives, the program about sex education, learning about condoms, and respecting their bodies. We have a loving family who supports one of us. We love UUFNN and all the people who have always supported and loved us. We've been very fortunate to live in a community with lots of love.
Yeah, and as you often say, marriage is a crapshoot.
Never know.
How do you really know the other person's right for you, and especially at a young age? Somehow, we ended up having the same interests and philosophies. I really believe that this fellowship has provided a foundation for our underlying values of helping people who are less fortunate.
Yes. When we were dating, we adopted another song, and it was sung by the Letterman. When I fall in love, it will be forever. We occasionally listen to it to remind us that it has worked for us. Happy anniversary, honey.
Happy anniversary.
Now we know what love and marriage really means. Thanks and celebration. In these times of anxiety and transitions and challenges, our UU spiritual community has kept us alive, and in fact, we have thrived through gifts of service and support, from phone calls to meals to active outreach. And if you just paid attention to what the Bianchi said, many groups of service have we been involved in. And again, it's time now to really think about that. And as you are able to make a donation to our organization. One of the things we do is share the plate, and each month we pick a nonprofit organization to receive donations from Share the Plate. This month, our April Share the Plate recipient is the Hampton House Garden Project. It's a Black-led community project aimed at supporting Black leadership and achievement by Black-led organizing. We have today, gratefully, the leader of this organization, Lily Barron, and she'll tell you more about it. Please, Lily, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'm like a little bit choked up. That was so beautiful, and I'm very much a hopeless romantic. So, I mean, hopeful romantic is like how I like to say it. So I'm just trying to gather myself because that's what everyone should have. My name is Lily Barron. I'm the founder of the Hampton House Garden Project, which started in 2020. I was asked to speak with you about it today, and often people ask me, how did this project start? And I've spent a lot of time thinking about that, because when does a garden start? Does it start when you're in the aisles of Lowe's and you grab too many pansies in April and they get snowed on? Does it start when you move into a new house and you see that you have a front yard? Or does it start at just conceptualizing? And I think that this one did start at conceptualizing, and it is guided by some of my principles that I follow in social justice. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit of a story about how this started and where we are now. In 2020, as we are all very familiar, a lot of things were happening in the world, and a lot of things were happening as far as folks in Reno. And I think that although we're aware of the many deaths that were caused by state violence, is the way that I like to put it, we did have that occur in Reno, and it wasn't as well covered. In 2017, a young Black teenager, 17 years old, named Micaiah Lee, was killed by the Sparks Police Department. And his mother was at the time working at McDonald's, and she did not receive any help from anyone in the community. And by 2020, she was struggling very much with her 3 or 4 sons, and had pretty much not received any kind of help or a lawyer or anything like this for the story that seemed like the exact kind of injustice that we all witnessed with George Floyd. So I met with this woman, and she was unable to attain the body camera footage of her son. And we found a civilian that did have the camera footage. And upon us first meeting, we sat together and we counted the amount of gunshots that they used to murder her son together. We had to listen several times also, and it was, and I'm sure, as you can imagine, a horrific experience. So at that point, I wanted to make it my job to create awareness about this issue happening in our community also, and that started in the form of protest. So we decided to do a die-in, which is where you block traffic and lay in the road, which we did in front of the district attorney's office right here in South Virginia Street, District Attorney Chris Hicks. And we laid on the road, and as I laid there, I thought about what would Audre Lorde do? What would Audre Lorde say? Because Audre Lorde talks about how while we're resisting and asking to dismantle systems of oppression, we also need to be imagining what the opposite of that looks like. Once you tear it down, there has to be something else to come to, right? We can dismantle as much as we want, but what are we building in return? So as the tears streamed down my face onto the pavement, and I'm surrounded by my community and my family, I tried to imagine what it would look like and what Reno would have to look like for someone like Micaiah and for Black and Brown and all of our children to have experienced the comfort of knowing they would grow up to be adults. How would my son, I have a 15-year-old as of last week, be cradled in this community, and how could I create an environment where he would be able to become an adult? And so I started really imagining, what does joy look like? What does music look like? And I kept picturing flowers and gardens and watermelons and all of these things. And I think that is where this idea came from. So that is the inception of Hampton House Garden Project. And it started in my backyard, which was about, the soil was about as forgiving as, I don't know, the Supreme Court. It was nothing, it was rock hard. And so we started a compost program using down-to-earth compost. So many of you, if you have down-to-earth compost at some point, your banana peels and coffee grinds have come to my house, and we have mixed them in with wood chips to create the soil that 4 years later is teeming with worms and mycelium and all of these beautiful things. And we began consulting with our local Indigenous siblings to ask them about what, how can we steward this land appropriately and led by Indigenous principles, and ask permission to launch this project, because although I am Black and Indigenous, I'm not Indigenous to Northern Nevada, and it's very important to me to make sure that we uphold those principles. So we began talking about growing culturally significant plants. So we have one, for instance, called Teosiente, which was one of the first corn varieties that was matriated with maize to make what we call corn now. So things like that, okra, because that is culturally important to my heritage, and other certain plants that mean something. And then 2 years ago, we started a refrigerated pantry project in front of the house, where I'm proud to say that we feed at least 300 people a week due to random, thank you, anywhere from organizations like the Reno Posse or Peren Bakery, also drops off bread. So when you buy a $12 croissant, don't forget that they also bring $12 croissants to feed the homeless and food insecure people in my neighborhood. It's worth every penny. Same thing with the co-op, and also schoolroom classes sometimes make sandwiches or pasta. All sorts of people in the community keep this fridge fed and keep folks fed. We've also added a Narcan and naloxone and test strip distribution center there, because where I live, right by Roller Kingdom, that's where the project is hosted, we are riddled with folks experiencing homelessness and substance abuse disorder. And those people are welcome in my front yard, and those people are welcome in my backyard. And this project is 100% funded by just the passion that we have for the community. So I invite all of you to come and join. Please come plant a seed. Please just come see what we're doing. It's at 638 Elko Avenue. We'll be meeting every Sunday, but we're also happy to host small groups. Sometimes there are folks that are, social workers that work at the hospital to inform parents that their child has passed, and they have come together in a group to grieve, but also do what I set out to do, which is to plant an alternative out of a really horrible situation. So I'm really proud about the work that we've done, and I'm very grateful for all of your time and for listening to me talk about this project. And right out here on the left, I have some more hard numbers for you because I know people like to see that. And just a little bit of background in our annual report from last year. We are hoping to expand. I have an upstairs in my house where we have housed some folks, single moms, teenagers who have been kicked out of Eddie House, et cetera, overnight. And I would like to fundraise to build that out to make it a little bit more of a comfortable place to help people that are slipping through the cracks of the agencies that now currently exist. Last thing before getting off, if you would like to learn more about what's going on with homelessness or anything like that, I am also the board president of the Reno Initiative for Shelter and Equality, and we are the only women's and family shelter. We also shelter seniors and have a really great program. So I know we all know a lot about the CARES campus, et cetera. We're kind of the alternative to that. And so I would encourage you to do some research about that as well. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Lily. Well, it's time now to show our love and compassion through our collection. And again, those of you who are here will pass the basket. And for those who are not here, you'll see different ways that you can contribute either by check, automatic giving, or sending a check to the office. So without further ado, may the offering begin. David will come forward with the basket. May we dedicate this offering with the words, "To the work of this fellowship, which is helping more people grow in love, faith, justice, and joy, we dedicate ourselves, and these are offerings." Before we sing the closing song, I'd like to remind you of a Climateers Confab, which will be held Friday, April 26th. Here, there are flyers in the gathering room. Climateers is putting the fun in making fundamental change. So speaking of fun, this last song I've got a real hold on. So stand up.
We're going to extinguish the chalice first. Right here.
Are we?
Yeah,
Oh. Okay, correction. First the challenge goes and then you get up. All right.
Yeah, it wasn't following the script. Thank you, Bob. The chalice is extinguished. but its light lives on in the minds and hearts and souls of each one of us. Let us carry the flame with us and share it with those we know, with those we love, and most especially to those we have yet to meet. You may have noticed as soon as Lois and I stopped talking, she left, she bolted. I hope it's not, 40's not the last one. No. No, she's out front. There she is right there. We're going to be serving cake afterwards. You may have seen that coming in, and some of your saliva was starting to work up. So there's going to be plenty of cake for everybody. Now, Bob.
Okay. He has a different script than I do. All right. Would you please rise as you are able? Okay. Ready? This little light of mine. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Rounding up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
And for the benediction, I chose Louis McGee's reading. Our religion is a religion of social concern, a religion of intellectual and ethical integrity, a religion that emphasizes the dynamic conception of history and the scientific worldview, a religion that stresses the dignity and worth of the person as a supreme value, and goodwill as the creative force in human relations. This religion can and ought to become a beacon from which this kind of faith shines. So may it be, and amen.